From ChristianToday.com article titled, Ken Ham says even atheists know the truth about God but choose not to believe it, by Serena Ong, published 17th of July, 2015. So this is one of the more persistent arguments that Ken Ham and his ilk like to propagate, by basically saying, and I quote from the article, atheists actively and aggressively attack Christianity and promote their atheism in order to suppress the truth in unrighteousness. It also goes on to say in the first chapter of the article that Ham believes that they are so aggressive in their beliefs because deep down in their hearts they know the truth but simply choose not to believe it. Now this actually conflicts with a few verses from the Bible which Mr. Ham seems to believe is non-fiction. Numbers chapter 14 verse 11, The Lord said to Moses, How long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me, in spite of all the signs I have performed among them? And John chapter 3 verse 18, Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. There's other verses, but from those two, you get the point. In both verses, it states that there are non-believers, or people who do not believe. And that's what an atheist is. A person who lacks a belief. Or some even say that there is no God, depending on whether you're an agnostic atheist or a Gnostic one. Later on in the article, Ken Ham brings up how Dawkins once said in an interview of The Daily Show that, I don't know what happens to us, but I know that our consciousness is wrapped up in our brains. I know that our brains rot. That's speaking of after you die. And Ken Ham replies, So Richard Dawkins, a man who is so certain there is no God, is not totally certain about what's going to happen to him when he dies. And yet he speaks with certainty as he tries to indoctrinate people to believe in his religion of atheism. Now, there's not a link to the Dawkins interview, but I've seen a couple of Mr. Dawkins interviews, and I've seen the God Delusion documentary, and Richard Dawkins is a scientist. He speaks of the research he's done and the facts he's accumulated and the evidence that shows the information that he's so certain of. Instead of making assertions on what he believes, he's actually speaking of what he knows. And also Ken Ham tacks on that atheism is a religion in which it's not, there's no tenets, there's no higher authority, there's no practices, it's just a lack of belief. Shortly after, Ken Ham is quoted to say, So, from the perspective of a self-described atheist, why does it ultimately matter what anyone believes about anything? First off, from what Richard Dawkins said, or at least was reported to say, in this article, in that small bit of his interview, didn't really have anything to do with him flat out saying it doesn't matter what we believe about anything. And in fact, the God Delusion documentary even states that certain cultures with certain beliefs have different ways of manifesting in the people and contributing to the behavior of said people or the actions of a nation or a group or traditions that pass down from the families and onward. Ken then goes on to say, still talking about what Dawkins said about the purpose of life, we can make whatever purpose and meaning for life that we want to during our brief existence, but in an ultimate sense, life is totally meaningless, hopeless, and purposeless. Now, that's a pretty nihilistic view of the meaning of life. There's different theories. You can believe what you like about the purpose and the meaning of life. You can create your own purpose or your meaning. We do have a brief existence. In the ultimate sense, it may seem that some things are meaningless or hopeless or purposeless, but it's the fact that we as humans, we can build on what we make and we pass down what we know and what we hold as valuable. It's not some, there has to be an ultimate goal or the adventure is purposeless. There has to be a destination. The journey, who cares? It doesn't matter on what you pick up along the way or what you learn or what you do and how you affect other people. It's, you gotta get to that end goal. I mean, that seems pretty bleak in itself. You want to enjoy life. Everyone's gonna die. So why are you focused on what happens afterwards? You should be focused on doing things now. And usually the Christians or believers of other faiths that have hell in their doctrines say, oh, we do focus on now so we can be prepared not to go to the bad place when we die. Well, you still have the burden of proof to show that this place exists and that your god exists, or gods. You can be Hindu. They have really cool gods, I think. That's your creative religion. That's still around. However, I think all their gods are like different manifestations of the Brahmin or something. Anyways, getting back to Ken Ham, he further goes on to say, they know God exists, the evidence is within them and all around them, but because of their sinful nature, they don't want God. And he basically repeats himself, and the atheists, they really believe, and they're just trying to suppress the truth and put off Christianity and yada yada yada. I mean, it says in the Bible that God gives us free will, so let them be free to do what they want and believe what they want, and your God will judge them in the end, right? But then again, it does say, oh, you gotta proselytize, you gotta reach out to them, it's your duty, and then you're gonna get persecuted because, you're Christian, and once they start persecuting you, you can say, oh, it says so right here, I guess it's right. We are being persecuted, so the Bible just proves itself. But the main thrust of this video and the main message, I guess you can say, in my response to the article, believe what you like, make the best out of it. There doesn't have to be a God. There doesn't have to not be a God. Go forth and multiply and enjoy life. Now, I'm sure most of you know that, and Ken Ham is of the sorts of Christian that are on the extreme. But if you sincerely need an ultimate being or some ultimate end goal for your life to have meaning, you might want to reevaluate your life and what you hope to do and who you hope to influence. Either way, have a good life.